Clerk, please read the short title.
Yes, Madam President. This public hearing is relative to the general ordinance of the City of Syracuse to adopt Rezone Syracuse. Rezone Syracuse is a citywide rewrite and codification of the City of Syracuse zoning rules and regulations and official zoning map as set forth in the Planning Commission resolution on file at the clerk's office.
Thank you. And before we start calling names, some housekeeping. Everybody will get 2 minutes to speak. And if there's time afterwards, you can come back up and speak. When you speak, please speak clearly and loudly because there is a stenographer online taking all this information. If you have written comments, please bring them to the clerk and they'll get entered after you speak. All righty. We have Steve Martell, and when you approach the mic, would you please state your name and your address? Steve Martell.
Hello. Okay, I'm on? Okay, good. Well, I don't know too much about the project that you're talking about yet. However, I'm really concerned about if this is going to involve widening Lafayette Road. If this construction is going to happen. As it is right now, Lafayette Road is really very, very tight, and it would really compromise our house quite a bit. And another concern I have is that I know that when our house was built back in 1950, they had to use dynamite to blow up the ground just to clear the rock, because it's one big giant rock. And I do believe that Lafayette Country Club is all rock. And it seems to me that there would be considerable noise involved. And me with my disability, and I live right next to Lafayette Country Club, they're my neighbor, would really set me off with seizures. And I can easily get seizures when I hear a loud noise. And I don't really know if this has been a consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Grace Martell.
Yes, I'm Mary Grace Martell, and I live next door to the country club as well with my husband. And I have a lot of concerns about the rock content in that, and the fact that they did need to use dynamite to build the house in 1950. The problem is that I really don't want dynamite going off right next to my house. I have a real issue with that. The other thing is the widening of the road. The way our driveway is, you'd take out our oak tree, and then you'd also be wiping out so that our driveway would be at a complete incline and be very difficult to get in and out of our driveway. The second thing is the roads are not maintained, and the city is just not responsive to what's going on right now with all the traffic and the potholes, and it just cannot handle that kind of traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to try to say Vicki Rawlings. Vicey? Yes, Vicey.
Vicey Rolling, 415, 417 Hawley Avenue. My concern is that I'm the owner of the building and landlord, has 4 apartments and a beauty salon in it. Parking lot with 2 curb cuts. I came and saw some question marks on the ground a few days ago and wondered what these question marks were about, and this afternoon happened to be standing there when some fellows came around with some paint or some spray cans to do more definition about what was going to happen in these spots. And I talked with them, and they said that one of the there are 2 curb cuts on the properties that I own. There's a building on one. Have a picture if anybody wants to see that afterwards on my phone. And 3 empty lots and curb cut at the other end. I house travel nurses. They work 24/7. They need to be able to get in and out of the parking lot. Parking on the street for them would be problematic because if they're working nights, they certainly can't come from the hospital and move their car from one side to the other. So a parking lot with 2 curb cuts is very helpful. The maximum number of cars that would be in that lot are 8, because 4 apartments and 2 people per apartment is what I generally house. The beauty salon customers park on the street, and they're accustomed to doing that, and they're only there for an hour, hour and a half, something like that. So they can do side-to-side parking if need be. I need to know who I can address to talk more about the loss of one of these curb cuts, because it will be a problem for me as a landlord in that building. So I'm asking for some feedback to know who to speak to talk more about this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jim Gallisarino.
Yes, I'm Jim Calistarinos. I live at 134.5 Lafayette Road. We are not against the Rezone Syracuse. We're against the upzone plan for Lafayette Road, which does not follow the comprehensive plan as traditional single-family residence. And my son's going to speak and a statement from our family. Thank you.
My name is James Calistarinos. I'm a resident at 134 Lafayette Road. On Lafayette Road, my family owns 4 houses and 3 vacant parcels. Some of my family members, they're lifetime residents, and they've lived there for almost 70 years. I myself have been in the picture for 30 years. My father and I have invested into our neighborhood by purchasing homes around us that were up for sale directly from lifetime residents that have died. In regards to the planned R4 upzone on Lafayette Road, it does not follow the comprehensive plan as traditional single-family residence neighborhood. If the upzone from R1 to R4 as proposed happens, it will certainly have a negative impact on many of us any way you look at. There is a proposed multi-story apartment complex, 3 to 5 stories high, with almost 100 parking spots, 50 to over 100 renters on land that we would share a 600-foot property line with access less than 10 feet from my bedroom window. Plans have circulated. Developers have met with city officials already, but as far as I know, plans have never been submitted for official review. The upzone will dramatically change the character of the neighborhood, leading to more people, traffic, safety issues, and noise, as well as property values dropping. We are not against Rezone Syracuse. We are against a radical change of the neighborhood's character and potential impacts an upzone on Lafayette Road would bring. We are against our properties being included on the map as R4 with no public notice, no ask if we supported it, which we don't, no justification from city officials as to why and if they can upzone our properties without notification or permission. We would like for our little slice of heaven on Lafayette Road to remain R1 and be removed from planned R4 upzone. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you bring that to the clerk? And you're speaking for Paula as well? He's. I'm speaking myself. Oh, okay. Your turn. You're Miss Paula.
Paula Calistarinos, 134 Lafayette Road. The proposal to upzone my current residence from A1 residential to R4 is unjust. This does not follow the comprehensive plan that was generated by the TNT, which is Tomorrow's Neighborhood Today, where they did extensive work on their comprehensive plan, and our Lafayette Road zone was supposed to remain R1 residential, traditional residential housing on Lafayette Road. I am not against upzone. I am against the rezone for Lafayette Road, which They took away our R1 status and they want to increase it to an upzone status of R4. It's completely ridiculous. We would share a 600-foot complete right-of-way that would be next to a 50-plus foot apartment complex that would house approximately 200 people, which would have a parking lot of over 100 people that would be parked right next to my property as well. This upzone would decrease my enjoyment of my life because there would be more crime, there would be more traffic. It would just take away my enjoyment of life. I don't understand how at the last minute a map appeared where it took away,
Ms. Paula, if we get a chance, we can let you circle.
it took away our
They'll get a
our
chance. We'll let you circle
R1
back.
status to R4 by Owen Kearney
so
with a
you're
flick
just
of a
up-
pen.
Thank you. All righty, Phil Preen.
Thank you. My name is Phil Prane. I am a statewide system advocate for Arise. My home address is 131 Butler Street in Syracuse. Arise, our job is to advocate for and to promote changes in local, state, and national laws to help people with disabilities live independent lives in our community. And we engaged in this process right from the beginning. It's been a long 6 years. And we had actively promoted 6 policies that would improve accessibility and add that to rezone to the Syracuse zoning code. We had 4 to 5 meetings with planning and zoning, and none of those 10 suggestions made it into the final draft. I'm not going to go over each individual 10. I will say that our absolute number 1 proposal was requiring all new and renovated building entrances to be accessible. In general, our proposals fell into 3 basic categories. 1, promote accessible entrances to buildings and historic buildings, and put that information into the plan. Promote accessible age-friendly housing to make sure that residential care facilities, boarding and rooming houses, which has historically been used to limit people living independently, will be able to continue. And lastly, to create a review process in planning and zoning that explicitly describes to applicants what accessibility is, what they can do, and how they can do it.
Okay,
Thank you very much, and I have...
Thank you. Victoria Coit.
Hello, my name is Victoria Coy, and I'm speaking as a resident of the city of Syracuse and as a senior organizer for Central New York on behalf of the New York Civil Liberties Union. We're a membership organization with over 80,000 members and 9 regional offices across the state. I'm passionate and proud of this community and all of the work that we do to make it a better place for our families and our loved ones. We have a unique opportunity for this generation to pass legislation that will impact the city for generations to come. And as you know, zoning can be used as a tool to destroy or properly rebuild a city of our size. We would like to commend some of the efforts by Rezone, such as changing the zoning designation of communities adjacent to I-81, requiring some affordable housing development, and expanding the definition of single-use family housing designations. We're almost there. The most important piece of zoning is placing safeguards within the plan that will first and foremost protect the people of the community to ensure there are affordable housing options for families in an environment that is healthy and lends to an excellent quality of life. NYCLU has some concerns with the current rezone plan, along with some simple amendments, about 3 of them. 1, require all new developments with more than 4 units to have affordable housing. 2, set aspirational zoning for future I-81 land use. 3, remove the buyout waiver for developers not willing to include affordable housing. We have seen zoning done well in the inner loop of Rochester, New York, and in Ohio. We have no shortage of examples. We have also no shortage of examples on how zoning has been weaponized and used to gentrify and slightly edge out hardworking, low and middle income families. It's our responsibility.
Victoria.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you bring that up so we can put it in record? Peter McCarthy?
Good evening. I represent CNY Solidarity Coalition, a group of Central New York residents. For years, we've supported New York Civil Liberties Union's work on police reform, the community grid, housing rights, and other issues. I'd like to address a couple of the points that Victoria just mentioned about rezone that NYCLU is advocating for. The main one is to require 30% affordable housing units in all multi-unit housings with no waivers and no exceptions. There's no reason to let developers out of this requirement. We don't need luxury housing more and more in the city, which is what's being built. We need to require units that people can afford. In my 70 years in Syracuse, I've been a homeowner, a tenant, a landlord, a contractor. I've heard landlords and developers whining and moaning about regulations, taxes, and tenants, and whatever else they can think of to make their lives sound miserable. The fact is, it's not hard to make a reasonable profit when you rent a building. I once had a conversation with a landlord who said to me, it's almost embarrassing how easy it is to make a lot of money doing this. And it's true. Developers and landlords make tons of money, and they can do it while treating people fairly and while having units that are rented to people who don't make tons of money. People, working class people and low income people. We don't need to give landlords and developers huge privileges to talk them into coming here. They want to come here. They see our city as a growing, vibrant place that's ripe for investment. Sometimes I think we have trouble seeing it this way. I'm asking you, please put the people of this city first. The developers will be just fine. Thank you.
Kevin Brown?
Good evening. Kevin Brown. I'm here. I'm with the law firm of Brown. We just changed the name, Vogel and Brown, Syracuse, New York. And I'm here on behalf of the Calcerinos family and their neighbors. This is just to do with Lafayette Road. I've put some comments in. Tricia had them this afternoon. That whole record needs to be in front of the board. Rezone Syracuse is wonderful. It's been needed for decades, and it's going very well in many aspects. Everybody has some comments on it, and that's good. Families don't always agree on what has to be done, and everybody has to have a chance to be listened to. The folks on Lafayette Road think they weren't listened to, and this hasn't been done the right way. When I looked at it, and I just briefly came on board, I saw it doesn't match the TNT plan for Sector 4 in the Valley. It doesn't match the comp plan. There's an issue here. So I respectfully request that it be left R1 until a proper process is done, and they're engaged also. You can see their aggravation. They're engaged also when this moves forward in a proper fashion. Again, you don't want to have this important rezoning and the comp plan and all the work that's gone in tainted when there's a small, there may be some other problems, I don't know, but this area, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't follow the law. It doesn't follow any kind of process that would be justified. I have 2 letters that I want to make sure are on the record, and I know everything else is up. Thank you.
Thank you. George Matthews, and again, when you come to the mic, could you state your name and your address, please?
Madam Council President, I'm sorry, I really couldn't hear your remark.
Your name and address.
Of course, yes. I'm George Matthews. I live at 711 West Seneca Turnpike. I'm a resident of Syracuse for 55 years now, and a homeowner in Syracuse in the Valley since 1976. I'm an active participant in TNT4, the Valley Planning Committee, which helped develop the TNT4 land use plan. As you've heard, that plan was part of the comprehensive plan. It was disregarded in developing the rezone for Lafayette Road. I'm also a former member of the City Planning Commission from 2008 to 2012. I'm quite familiar with the seeker process. Seeker process should not be a bar to improving the rezone ordinance and making it responsive to the rights and needs of individuals. It must comply with the comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2014. It's supposed to implement the Syracuse Land Use Plan and Development Plan 2040. It has a goal to protect the sense of place of Syracuse neighborhoods. I'm not sure what that means, but I think a large apartment house on Lafayette Road does not fit with a sense of place. The new zoning classifications were applied to some 3,900 parcels out of 44,000 in the city, and some mistakes are bound to be made. But some applications, it was easy and obvious. RA1 becomes R1, RB5 becomes R5. Others, open space, I have an issue with that, but I'm not going to dwell on that here today. In the Lafayette Road neighborhood, the new R4 designation was applied
Thank you,
instead of
Mr.
the
Matthews.
expected R1.
If you have that in writing.
I do have
take
it. I
up
will
here.
submit it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Lockwood.
Good evening. My name is Ben Lockwood. I'm at 109 Dorset Road, and I am representing Housing Visions, a not-for-profit affordable housing developer based in Syracuse. I am speaking in support of the rezone legislation before you with the recognition that it is not a perfect plan, and I think at this point we are picking at the margins. I understand one of the great things about legislation is once it's done, you can pass new legislation to fix things that aren't going. This has been studied for 2 administrations now with a lot of input, which I fully support. Some of the great things that rezone will allow, speaking with my developer hat on, predictability, which I think is very important. The worst thing you can ever hear when you walk into planning is, this is interesting. Civil service, we have qualified people that have passed civil service jobs. We should allow them to do their jobs and frankly not let the council get in the way sometimes. And lastly, I think, with the changes, there will still be site plan review. There is still oversight when big projects come up, and that will be needed. Again, with the recognition, it's not a perfect one. I do urge it because this will go on forever as we seek perfect if we don't do anything. And doing nothing is not a good idea in my opinion. So thank you.
Sheldon Williams.
Good evening. My name is Sheldon Williams. I have lived at 511 Hawley Ave for 48 years. I have 45 years of experience with the current ordinance as an architect, city planner, and historic preservation consultant. The adoption of this Rezone Syracuse should be paused by the Common Council. There's not enough time for citizen scrutiny, especially since the revised draft was released not too long ago. This is very detailed. Stakeholder participation has been limited. 7 years ago, I asked Owen Kearney twice to be informed of stakeholder meetings. I don't use a computer for reasons of my own, but I gave him my card and asked to receive either written or telephone notice of stakeholder meetings. Over 7 years of time, that never occurred. I have considerable experience with the zoning ordinance and much to say about it. There doesn't seem to be enough time here. Here's an item. Legal non-conforming uses must be observed more leniently, otherwise people will be denied fair traditional use of their properties. 2-year abandonment is too short a period of time. Also, it should be constructive abandonment, not casual abandonment. That is, changing of the configuration of the building, actual change of use, etc., would be constructive abandonment. But if it is empty for a period of time because someone has died at age 102 and it has been in an estate, I don't consider that as constructive abandonment of the use of the property, and that should be changed.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. If you have it in writing, you can bring it to the clerk and she'll put it on record.
We're going to get a chance to talk later?
Yes, if we have time.
We have time.
Mary Cunningham.
All the time in the world.
My name is Mary Cunningham, and I'm a 50-year resident of the city. I've lived all over the east side. I feel funny talking to you guys because I know you know this plan is beyond flawed. And I think what we need to do is remember the flaws, and it's easier to fix them before we vote on it than afterwards. That is just a fact of history. Rochester has set a model. There needs to be at least 30% affordable housing in all different kinds of housing. We need to have not just large housing units, we need to have smaller housing units that would also allow for local builders and local construction and smaller construction people, so that we are creating jobs with the people who live in that neighborhood in the 15th and the 16th ward. We need to be using local work and not just hiring people from St. Louis or wherever they come from. I-81, when it was built, you guys were all there. It displaced many families. We shouldn't be making that permanent by doing MX4 and MX5 in the 15th and 16th ward. We need to be doing an equity impact statement before we tear things down and take a look at what it will be. And lastly, this plan is a developer's dream. It's not a community dream. And there really needs to be a lot more community dreaming that gets incorporated into this. So I just hope you will reconsider and really think about, let's make the changes before. It's really a lot easier. Thank you.
Aggie Lane.
Hi, I'm Aggie Lane of 340 Midland Avenue. I'm also a board member of the Urban Jobs Task Force. And I just want to tell you a little bit about this book I just read called Poverty by America by Matthew Desmond. And he came here because he had written Evicted and had written a book on what happened in Milwaukee, people being evicted and not having housing. But Poverty by America basically says that we have poverty in our city because our government subsidizes the middle class and the elites and the upper class by everything from the mortgage, being able to take your mortgage interest payment off your taxes, to all kinds of subsidies. And when he looks at it, he says we don't do enough to, if you will, give support to those that are struggling. So what I'm arguing is do a racial equity impact statement on zoning and how it created the segregation we have in our city, and to really take a look at that and figure out how not to repeat those mistakes. And I guess the last thing is Urban Jobs Task Force did a racial equity impact statement on the construction trades. And out of that, we figured out where to go to bring more equity to the construction jobs. So I think it's good to slow down so that we have zoning that doesn't really end up subsidizing developers and
thank
people
you,
who don't
Aggie.
need it.
Barry Gordon.
Barry Gordon, 3648 Doyle Road, that's in the town of Lysander. We've lived in Onondaga County since 1969, and we spend a lot of time in Syracuse. We feel very much connected to Syracuse, even though we live outside the city. Syracuse has had an absentee ownership problem for a long, long time, with people who not only do they not live in a neighborhood that they own a house in, they don't live in the county, and in a lot of cases don't even live on this continent. Now, if we look at what's been built recently, it's been built by large outside corporations, with more to come. Right now, at this time, there's that meeting going on about Micron. And Micron is considered a suburban thing, but it's going to affect all of us. And more, Onondaga County, for its water, and Syracuse for its urban land, is both looking more and more like a colony. And I would like to see a lot more in the zoning to protect communities, people of marginal means, and do not encourage or enhance the activities of large, wealthy corporations from afar.
Before I call the next name, is there anyone else? If you would like to speak, you need to go to the back of the room and fill out a yellow card. All righty, Mike Stanton.
Mike Stanton, 315 Berkeley Drive. I'm also a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Our board voted unanimously, I believe, in support of rezone. I'm sure nobody in this room thinks that the document you're discussing tonight is perfect. Some of you think it's much less perfect than others, but we've been working on it for more than 5 years. It is so much better than the zoning code that we're working with right now. It's time to pass it and then come back in a few months and look at adjustments that might need to be made. So in short, I encourage you to vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Gary Ness. Thank you.
My name's Gary Nastasi. I live at 154 Lafayette Road. My family and I own 6 properties, 4 houses and 2 vacant lots in the proposed rezone area. My family's been up there. My mother's been there since 1938. I've lived there all my life. I live in the house right next to where this proposed building would go. I'd like to correct a few falsehoods and rumors that have been going around. My family and I are not leaving the neighborhood. I plan on living there for the rest of my life. I have 3 nieces that are poised to buy the other 3 houses and carry on the tradition of the Nastasis living on Lafayette Road forever. It's a couple things that have been said tonight that are incorrect. It's not going to be a 200-unit building. It's 74. I live right next door to it. I plan on living there for the rest of my life. To me, it makes nothing but sense. People would love to live in that area. I worked for the city for 25 years. I can't tell you how many people that work for the city that have to live in the city that would love to live up there. They've asked me for years to do something with that property so they could live in the city in a nice area. It makes nothing but sense to me. I'd appreciate a vote of yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Sally Santangelo.
I'm not Sally. She had to step out.
Wait, I know you shut
Sally had to go to another thing, so I'm Alex Lawson. I'm the Housing Policy Coordinator at CNY Fair Housing, and I live at 300 Lenox Avenue. CNY Fair Housing is a private nonprofit organization dedicated to eliminating housing discrimination and ensuring equal access to housing opportunity in Central New York. We're really interested in zoning because it is a main driver of segregation, and we know that the current zoning code is a very intense driver of segregation. If you look at just the history of zoning in Syracuse, it was originally instantiated for racially discriminatory reasons, and it still has those impacts. And mostly it does that through having, low density, single family owning neighborhoods. If you look at the areas where that's the only kind of housing allowed and you can't have apartments or anything else, that's where you have wider, wealthier neighborhoods. That's what drives the segregation. And so we think that Rezone makes some very important and modest improvements in expanding housing opportunity in those neighborhoods by allowing other housing types like row homes and accessory dwelling units. We think it's a big improvement on the status quo. We also like that it has the affordability set-asides for larger buildings. Obviously, there are things about Rezone that could be better. It could further expand housing opportunity in those ways. But this is it's a really big deal for Syracuse to be making this kind of a step. And we also know there is a price to delaying this process. There are currently, I think, 6 for-profit market rate developments in the pipeline in Syracuse. And if we had Rezone already in place with its affordability requirements, those 6 projects would result in 146 affordable units. That's not going to happen because Rezone hasn't been passed yet. And the sooner we pass it, the more we can get those units coming online for the people who really need them. So here to speak in favor. Thank you. This is all messed up. Can I email that?
Before midnight.
I'll do it.
David Appleton.
Hope the clock isn't running yet. My name's Dave Appleton. I'm owner-occupant of 737 Lemoyne Ave for the past 17 years. I'd like to introduce this letter to the council. While the council is studying the zoning issue, I would ask you to consider the effect of setback requirements on the future use of zero-emission vehicles by city residents. While neighborhoods with large lots enjoy the luxury of long driveways with which to access ample parking pads, many of us have small lots which can't accommodate a long driveway. Oops. People living in these compact neighborhoods would need to pull up to their house to plug in their cars. May I suggest that for these houses, any front yard parking that doesn't block the sidewalk should be allowed. It is the most efficient form of off-street parking since it replaces the least amount of grass and foliage. A small driveway with a small house on a small lot makes for a small footprint. Isn't that the desired goal? I would also like to resubmit a letter I sent to each common council member serving 14 years ago. The writing was already on the wall back then, but I received no response from any of them. Perhaps the present councilors will see the need more clearly. I will send you those on email too. January 14th, 2009. Dear Common Council member, I am inquiring of you what each of you is doing to
Mr.
encourage
Appleton,
the use of electric vehicles.
if you can leave those with us, we can put them in the transcript.
Can't hear you.
If you can leave those with us, we'll put them in the transcript.
I have no idea what you're saying.
Your 2 minutes are up.
Thank you. Kathy Stribley.
You're stepping back.
Kathy Stribley, 316 Monticello Drive North. I am a member of the Valley TNT and a co-chair of the Planning Committee of the Valley TNT. Also participated in the comprehensive plan that produced the plan that shows Lafayette Road as traditional residential with open space next to I-81. The rezone maps from 2017 to 2019 show that area zoned the way we anticipated. And 2007, at the end of 2017, developers began to pressure the rezone staff to change that zoning. There was minimal public involvement. We were not informed, the TNT was not informed, and the change was made in the 2019 map. This does not follow the comprehensive plan. It puts incredible additional strain on that area, which is a constricted choke point entry into the city, which has not been planned, and where there's lots and lots of developments, even in the pipeline right now. We have accidents, we have lots of issues. It's also, as one person mentioned before, very shallow bedrock. Steep cliffs going down to I-81 that are zoned R4. Not suitable for multifamily housing, not suitable for children to be near, actually. So the I-81 is going to make this whole situation worse. It's a fringe area. It's not the center of the city. People can't get out there easily. It's accessible by...
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Strelly.
you.
If you leave that.
I do have copies.
Thank you. Danielle Calaserino.
My name's Danielle Calaserino. I live at 134 Lafayette Road. The comprehensive plan put forth by TNT for Lafayette Road should be followed. Lafayette Road zoning should remain R1 instead of being unfairly and grossly upzoned to R4 in benefit of a single person and property owner. Proper notice and even consideration were not given at all. Excuses can be brought up, but there is plenty of evidence that speaks against the need. One in particular is water pressure, which in no way has changed despite the claims of a new pump station being placed on East Brighton. I even have video proof of this when the flow in our home changed. Our home is the closest to the road out of any of the houses in that section. The move for housing, large housing in particular, is not on Lafayette Road nor in the southern section of the city in general. Not to mention that this road cannot handle increased traffic. I can go on, but I have written 3 other letters that were sent to council members, especially my first that explained everything that included trash on the road, traffic, crime, and inconsiderate people who walk down the road who like to pull up my flowers. The home and the proposed changes are all single-family homes, and placing large apartment buildings between them should not be allowed. Not to mention that it would essentially place my family's properties sandwiched between Kinney Drugs on the corner and these apartments. I am an autistic adult, and my home, my safe place, lies right next to the property, the only property that this outrageous zoning change is being considered for. I already struggle with the sounds of loud cars that pass by with no care for the speed limit, blaring music, and the added yelling that can be heard clearly coming from Nob Hill. Having even more right next to my home, in fact, not only causes more problems, but will significantly affect my mental health. I even have a copy of my first letter just in case.
Jackie Hassan.
Good evening. I'm Jacqueline Lasson. My address is 2221 South Salina Street, and I'm also coordinator of Southside Coalition. So I echo the statements of Mary Cunningham and Ann Aggie Lane. Maintaining exclusionary zoning will have a discriminatory effect on the predominantly black and brown residents in Syracuse's low-income communities. It prevents the city of Syracuse from furthering, I will take out the word affordable and say low-income housing. To address Syracuse's lack of affordable housing and segregated neighborhoods, Rezone must end exclusionary zoning. Ending exclusionary zoning eliminates needless barriers to affordable housing through expanding multifamily housing choices for people with low or moderate incomes. It supports communities' health and incentivizes new land uses. The Common Council, as the lead agency, has the affirmative duty to overcome patterns of segregation and to foster inclusive communities. Ending exclusionary zoning is the first step in correcting this blatant attack on black families simply seeking equitable living standards who were effectively barred from exclusionary zoning. Any acceptable zoning plan in Syracuse must include an EIS to consider and mitigate any potential harms, meet the goals set in the Land Use Plan of 2040 to correct historical racist zoning trends, further low-income housing, and protect current residents. It can do so by conducting an environmental impact statement, providing safeguards against displacement, ending exclusionary zoning, requiring affordable housing units. Sure.
You want to leave that up here? Thank you. Nicole Odom.
Greetings and salutations, Council. My name is Nicole Odom. My daughter and my 4 grandchildren reside at 302 Merriman Ave. I'm here today because the housing stock in Syracuse is dismal. I'm with Housing Vision. Like, we need developers to come in and see us as wanting to provide housing, and so I don't want Syracuse to become a Seattle. I don't want Syracuse to become a Oregon where people are just not housed. And so something has to be done because that's where we're headed. And so please do what you can to bring developers here and incentivize them to create housing for the residents of Syracuse. We need it. Housing is a social determinant of health. And so therefore, if you're not housed, you can't stabilize anything. Your medical status, your financial stability, all of those things are contingent upon stabilized housing. I've been in human services for over 10 years in this community. I know what homelessness looks like. Please, come together, figure this out. Figure it out, whatever it takes, because we are worth it. Keep rising. I believe in Syracuse. We're on the upswing. Come on, let's get it together. The money is there, the people are there. Come on, come on, come on, let's get it. Don't play with it.
Thank you. Joe Bennett.
Hi, I'm Joe Bennett, 180 Hopper Road, Syracuse. I'm here as a resident, but also to echo the demands of New York Civil Liberties Union. To require all new development with more than 4 units to have affordable housing and actual affordable housing, not just by name only. 2, to set aspirational zoning for I-81 future land use. And 3, remove buyout waivers for developers not willing to include affordable housing. And again, actual affordable housing, not just by name only. We need to put people over profit, and thank you.
Thank you. I.A. Montgomery.
Good evening. Dumela. I am here, I'm from 132 Lafayette Road. Last time when I spoke, people said they cannot hear me. Can you hear me now? I speak very softly, so I'm here to give a quick example, a story, true story that we can all follow, whether zoning or not zoning. There's something that we can follow and learn. It's about my father, about doing the right thing. I was born in a very, very poor country called Myanmar, Burma, and I was 13 years old when my father told me that he wants to make a difference and he wants to do the right thing and he wants to get a job and he's getting out of the country to a foreign country. So as a child, I thought he's going to go to a very rich, developed country like America or UK or somewhere, with lots of money and lots of opportunity. And my father sadly told me that time that my mother and I, we were shocked. He wanted to take my family to Botswana, South Africa, and I grew up in South Africa, Botswana, one of the poorest countries in 1988 that time. But my father did the right thing, and he trained the pilot in Botswana because he wanted them he did the right thing because he was needed in that country more than any other rich and already developed country. So he did the right thing. So it's the same thing, even though my family grew up and struggle and see everybody struggle, but my father helped that country people developed and they need to be where they get to be with my father's help. It's the same thing in Syracuse here, whether the right thing or the wrong thing, we need to do the right thing to help where the help is needed. So I'm from 132 Lafayette Road. My road is not needed, but there are places that need it that please support.
And we get enough time, we can circle back.
Thank you.
Desiree, I can't pronounce it. Do you know who you are?
Yeah, thank you. My last name is complicated. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Desire Ndagijimana. I'm a former refugee from Democratic Republic of Congo. I came here in 2016. I will not talk about zoning a lot, but I will advocate for my fair new American population. So Micron is coming, but we have a problem. Our families are so worried. My mom did go to school, and we have a lot of people like that, like her, who will not get a job at Micron, and the rent went up, So we have problems, and, so it's something you guys need to consider about where our family is going, because, some people have started coming. I've seen people coming back from states because they know there are jobs going to come here, but not everybody is going to access that job, and that's something. Another thing I'm talking about is about our people. The police pull our people when they are driving, and the fact that somebody doesn't speak English doesn't mean that he doesn't know, he did fault. And I've been getting a lot of complaints from our people. It's something you need to consider. If they are involved in an accident, there needs to be something like, judgment, because sometimes they say, oh, this person is the one who is in fault, and maybe they are not. So, it's something you need to consider, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Mark Carney.
My name is Mark Cooney. I live at 226 Milburn Drive, and I'm an active member of the Valley TNT. I'm here to address, as far as the Planning Commission meeting, that City Planner Owen Kearney said he would prepare responses to each of the points raised by speakers Tuesday night before the Planning Commission votes on rezone. As far as we were here to ask, where are those responses? You may have presented those in private to the Commission, but those responses were never made public. Some of those questions raised that night were about Lafayette Road. Mr. Kearney has also refused to attend any TNT meetings to address Lafayette Road residents, despite a council members asking Mr. Kearney on our behalf. Nor did Mr. Kearney agree to attend a meeting with citizens to discuss the zoning department's decision to bundle and upzone to R4 those Lafayette Road properties in an attempt at resolution to these concerns and to engage in dialogue with these property owners prior to the rezone moving forward to council. We are asking, why would the zoning department propose R4 with absolutely no adherence to the comprehensive plan, the waiving of need to follow current zoning application procedures having been followed, that to skip existing code and ordinance procedures for filing for an upzone from a traditional R1 neighborhood. There's no applications that have been filed. This should be looked at more closely by the Common Council, hopefully to avoid litigation and the damage of citizen trust in this process. We ask you to consider 3 options we believe are within the council's control. You could send this back to the Planning Commission, asking that there be another public hearing with questions and concerns being able to be directly addressed by planning and zoning representatives and requiring them to answer citizens directly in a good faith effort to come to an agreeable resolution following current upzone code and ordinance practices. The second suggestion we make,
Mr. Coney,
one other suggestion. Council could also recommend additional.
If you leave that with us, we can put it into the transcript, and if we get a chance, we can come back around.
We're asking that the council could amend this map at this time, keeping all these properties R1.
Thank you very much.
Until this has been resolved. Thank you.
Megan Stewart, right here. I don't know.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Megan Stewart. I live at 527 Robino Road. I'm the director of the Housing and Homeless Coalition of Central New York. We're a coalition of organizations dedicated to ending homelessness in a 3-county region. The Housing and Homeless Coalition of Central New York supports the adoption of Rezone and its efforts to expand affordable housing in the city of Syracuse. Though the coalition is in support of the adoption, we will be monitoring, if passed, how the council will respond to future efforts to build residential care facilities, as it might require special permitting under Rezone. It is the coalition's hope that this would not stifle development of future emergency shelters or other residential care facilities that are critical for the health and safety of the city's residents. Even with this consideration, the coalition supports the adoption of Rezone, as the homelessness population in Syracuse has increased by 143% in the past 2 years. The housing crisis is now. We need more affordable housing now. Someone earlier mentioned that they didn't want us to become Seattle. We're on our way. We need affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan, do you have that in writing? Thank you. Andrew Lanetta? Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Andrew Lanetta. I live at 514 Roland Street. I'm the executive director of a Tiny Home for Good, here today to support Rezone. So a Tiny Home for Good exists because of a couple places that are right around the corner from here. Those large apartment complexes that are the only things within the price range of men and women facing homelessness. And those, as many of you can probably imagine, were in really rough shape and continue to be. So our goal was to build small homes that, would really work long-term for our tenants at not just affordable, but what people are determining ultra affordable, right? And we were able to do that with the current zoning. But when I look at what Rezone is going to allow us to do, not only in the neighborhoods that we really have only been kind of possibly to build in because of Rezone, but where we can now build thanks to Rezone, where other organizations can kind of expand their footprint with a little bit more creative housing, it's really exciting. And I see like our real possibility of kind of decentralizing more of the poverty in our city, specifically around homelessness, to really be able to be realized with Rezone. So appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Catherine Landis.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Catherine Landis. I'm a lifetime resident of Syracuse. I live at 1647 Salt Springs Road. The city comprehensive plan shows the properties west of Lafayette Road as traditional residential with open space next to Route 81, the slopes, which has been pointed out are quite precipitous, rezone maps from 2017 through 2019 show those parcels as R1 in accordance with that plan. This was changed to R4 in the 2019 version, but residents were not informed, nor was this major change brought to the attention of TNT or the Planning Committee. March 2023 map fails to faithfully implement the comprehensive plan, and as has been pointed out, R4 is not appropriate for this landscape because of sewer and water restrictions, as well as bedrock and the steep slopes. New York zoning law requires that zoning be undertaken in accord, quote, in accord with a well-considered plan, unquote, and not just at the request of developers and outside a public participation process. Change in zoning to benefit one or two owners is spot zoning, not for the benefit of the community. R4 would drastically change the character of that area and will have negative impacts on the environment and place additional strain on the infrastructure. I urge that the council approve the draft amendment to the March 2023 rezone map and return these properties to R1. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to leave that to us? Peter King. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name's Peter King. I live at 101 Hurlburt Road on Meadowbrook, just off Meadowbrook. I'll keep my comments brief. Basically, there's a lot I like about the zoning plan, and I think that a lot of creative work's been done on it to bring us out of exclusionary zoning. I can see where a lot of people have some remaining concerns, especially those voiced by tonight by Aggie Lane and Niklu, those speaking about affordable housing, increasing the amount of affordable housing and so on. And to start with, I just want to give my general opinion about the shape, how this is all shaping, which is, I think the city could do better. The city has been mentioning or discussing affordable housing in at least 4 places. One is here, the other is the Dover Coal planning, which we had a great start in December, and we haven't heard more from yet. The third being SIDA's new policy, which is on hold currently, which would demand affordable housing from developers for certain tax abatement, and so anyway, the fourth is the affordable housing plan, which just got completed, and which recommends kind of a level of urgency about affordable housing. And now there are many planning options that are not being considered here, which are more innovative that other cities have done. For example, Boston has something called Article 80, which for any development over a certain size kicks in a kind of a community benefits agreement thing where the community has to come in and join in the planning for that project. That's according to the people. I have relatives in Boston who recommend that highly.
Thank you.
And the other is Chicago's equitable transit-oriented
We'll come back
development.
around. Thank you. Marva Maver Ackerman.
Hi, Maura Ackerman. I live at 168 Westminster Avenue, and I'm here representing the Syracuse Onondaga Food Systems Alliance. Unlike the Planning Commission hearing, we have not yet heard about food, so I'm excited to be here tonight alongside my colleague and community partner, Rhonda Vesey, who you'll hear from shortly, to talk a little bit about the food system aspects of Rezone. Over the years since its zoning was last revised, the city of Syracuse has changed significantly. All the while, its zoning policies have remained mostly stagnant. In order for Syracuse to achieve its aspirations and represent the interests of its residents, policies of the past must be subject to reconsideration and adjusted to better serve our communities. Rezone Syracuse provides the opportunity to address past harms while prioritizing the health and quality of life of all Syracuse residents. The passage of this ordinance will be a critical step towards enhancing Syracuse's existing land use, regulations, and practices. The new zoning rules have the potential to help improve Syracuse's food system, particularly for marginalized communities. On behalf of the hundreds of members of SAFSA, we applaud the city's planning division and the many individuals who've contributed to the formulation of the new ordinance currently under consideration. Rezone takes important steps towards investing in meaningful and lasting policy change that will guide municipal land use. We want to celebrate the inclusion of two key changes in particular that are focused on enhancing agricultural opportunity within the city's boundaries. First of all, updated allowances for community gardens and urban agriculture that will support both residential and commercial food production in the city, both hobbyists and entrepreneurs alike. Clarification around the keeping of small animals in residential zones to ensure consistent enforcement and positive relationships among neighbors. After over 5 years of hard work and revisions, it's time to make the final key changes to this ordinance and swiftly transition to the implementation stage. While we believe that Rezone promotes a more equitable Syracuse food system and look forward to the inclusion of ongoing equity assessments in this and future planning processes that impact our city's residents' access to food and transportation.
Give that to the clerk. Thank you. Nicole Watts. Thank you.
Good evening, Nicole Watts. I'm representing Hope Print. And I just want to start by reminding us all that maps have the power to map people in and to map people out. And they have a profound impact on the neighborhood level. I've experienced this in a very personal way over the last 13 years of living on the same block, with our housing being zoned the way that it is, code enforcement enforcing that zoning the way that it does. It makes a very, very distinct impact on the day-to-day life of everyone that is living in the community. We have long overdue needs for new zoning, and immediate action is absolutely needed. And there are certainly many positive things included within the rezone as it's proposed. However, it doesn't address several incredibly important issues, many of them which have already been outlined by NYCLU, so I won't go into those in my minutes. In neighborhoods where time and meaningful connection was taken, we're seeing different sentiments. We've seen that tonight. And I appreciate that meaningful community engagement is very difficult, but it must be done. I want to echo the solutions as NYCLU outlined them. Hold a series of accessible public informational meetings of the communities impacted most. Ensure future land that I-81 is zoned equitably now, or delay rezone until it can be. Conduct a racial equity impact assessment to acknowledge zoning segregational roots, and require 30% of the new units to be affordable in all new multiple dwellings with no exceptions. As I look at those, they are resonant with a lot of the sentiments that I have for our community. Bureaucracy has the power to hold up the system and to create a chokehold on our community, or it has the opportunity to listen to the community voices and drive things home to be able to make an incredibly positive impact. We are at the moment of truth now as Micron moves into our community. We are already in a housing crisis, and if we do not meaningfully address this now, then we are going to see the implications all the more in the days to come. This is an important decision, so good luck.
Thank you. Bob Haley.
Thank you, councilors. My name is Robert Haley. I live at 137 Buckingham Ave in Syracuse and have for many years. I've been a member of the Landmark Preservation Board for the city for 27 years. Also I'm an architect by training, and lived and done most of my career here with the development community in terms of institutional projects as well as housing projects and so on. Also, we had with a partner of mine who unfortunately passed away during COVID, we did have an urban design center for the city of Syracuse working 20 years, and we've created the Syracuse Housing Pattern Book with details regarding our neighborhoods. I'm going offline, I'm wasting part of my 2 minutes. But the point here is that we're in a pivotal spot. You've heard a lot of comments today from folks who are bringing a lot of details to the table. Details are what we work with every day and what we labor with. But the vision is the long-term, large-term vision. And that's transitioning our city from the negative side that you've heard in different voices to the positive side that we think it can be. Rezone can get us there, but it's not final. Rezone brings the best practices of urban planning to the city from all across for the past 20 to 30 years. However, there are some gaps, and I want to, again, I have a letter which I'll leave with you, but I want to try and summarize them. We still need the purpose of the plan, which is the social issues and the equity issues. And you've heard that spoken to eloquently tonight by many people. We need to create a social repair statement to complement the rezone. We need to require some affordable housing units in all projects. There should be no escape clause for developers to say, well, I'll give you some payback, or I'll give you some trees or parks if I don't do the affordable housing component of your housing requirements. That needs to change and be improved. Eliminate escape clause. Sorry.
You can
Thank
leave
you. I'll have
that
to give
with
you
us.
the notes. It does say that we're not quite ready to go ahead.
We might get around back again, and you can come back. Rhonda Vesey.
Good evening. My name is Rhonda Vesey. I am here representing Food Access Healthy Neighborhoods Now. I am the chairperson and founder of FUN. It's a coalition of residents of the Valley and South Side and surrounding neighborhoods dedicated to bringing access to fresh food to our underserved community. We are responding to the 2018 closure of the Tops grocery store in the Valley Plaza, located at 4141 South Salina Street, the only full-service grocery store in that immediate community, and happens to also be the largest low-income, low-access area in all of Onondaga County. Part of FUN's mission is to mobilize neighborhood resources, residents, business owners, and other community stakeholders to address the need for access to fresh food. We also strongly advocate the return of a full-service grocery store to the area, and in doing so, we started bringing a farmer's market. Last summer, 2022, outside, we just completed indoor winter market, April 22, and June 24th, we will be embarking on our second outdoor farmers market at the Valley Plaza, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. to bring access to fresh food and to give folks choices to shop at besides Dollar Tree, Dollar General, and Family Dollar, where there are no fresh foods. We give a special thanks to Councilman Choma Joke, Owen Kearney, Mike Green, Bill Kinney in his absence, Deputy Commissioner Eric Ennis for helping to put together part of the rezone that prohibited commercial zoning in the Valley Plaza, for instance, which would have eliminated a farmer's market. We ask that you take a...
Thank you, Ms. Rhonda. Dallas Bryson. Thank you. If we get a second go round.
Good evening. I'm Dallas Bryson, the Executive Director at NEDA. We're located at 101 Gertrude Street. And we are here to support the adoption of Rezone Syracuse. As the Executive Director of NEDA, I lead a team who support the residents and small business owners on the north side, many of whom are members of historically marginalized populations. A new zoning ordinance and map would dramatically improve our ability to help stabilize and improve the north side. Last year, our housing advisors received requests for assistance from over 200 individuals and families in need of safe, secure, and quality affordable housing, which is in short supply in the city. The affordable housing provisions in Rezone Syracuse stand to have a profound impact on the facilitating and creation of more opportunities for people to live in safe, quality units, as well as housing that meets the various needs of our changing community. With increased supply, we would be better able to help our clients access stable housing, which decreases food insecurity, improves health, and improve overall well-being. NEDA also provides support for small businesses directly and through our relationship with the Northside Business Partnership, who I also have a letter from. There are several businesses right now with plans to improve or expand their business, which they are waiting on rezone for because the lots that they are on or want to be on have zoning that is outdated or honestly nonsensical. I'll just skip to the end here, which is that the best time to start improving our zoning was 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now.
Sam Eschenbrenner.
I come not with any organization, but just simply as a tenant, one who might qualify for the affordable housing provisions, not quite sure. Anyway, I want to echo a lot of the words that were spoken by many folks here, endorsing the rezone, thanking you all for your hard work and the city for its hard work. I know that the organization of Uplift Syracuse has presented recommendations to intensify the rezone project. I will not re-summarize them, but I strongly endorse these recommendations. But I want to illustrate to you and to other folks here, I've spent a lot of time following housing politics in cities around the country and to some extent around the world. And someone mentioned Seattle earlier. We don't want to make those same mistakes. Lots of them were like, oh, we don't have a housing crisis, we don't have a housing crisis. And they created a vetocracy. They were enemies of developers. They made it really, really hard to build housing. And then they blamed, developers, landlords, capitalists, their political enemies, and not themselves. And then suddenly they could not welcome people because their housing prices had soared through the roof because they hadn't built housing. And now we're at the point where states are stepping in. Vermont just legalized duplexes on any property in the state, legalized quadplexes on any property in a sewer line. The city of Toronto, quadplexes on any property by right. California has established what's called the housing element, which states that unless cities make massive increases in their housing construction, the state will step in and basically mandate towers be built as of right, provided there's a certain affordable housing threshold, because these states have been hit so hard by the fact that people came in. They wanted to welcome immigrants as much as this city does, but they didn't want to build the housing. And you guys are stepping up, and you guys are making it.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Palmer Harvey.
Hi, my name is Palmer Harvey. I'm the Syracuse Tenants Union founder. The first thing I want to say is the rent is too goddamn high. Because a one-bedroom goes for over $1,000 in Syracuse, and we live in the highest concentration of poverty in the nation. And these big obelisks of buildings that are going up supposedly for housing are not coming to the people that are most needed. And every day I have to tell tenants, like, I don't know what you're going to do, because you can't fight back. You make barely above minimum wage in a city that is always on the poverty list. So I don't think people think of rezoning is this big to do for the average person, but it's really important that we not take this lightly and that we not do the bare minimum. Because I am personally sick of telling single mothers, I don't know what you're going to do with your 5 kids, because there's no place they can afford to live but to move out of the city. And I don't want Syracuse to be known for that. We have a good thing going here. We have people who care here. We have people, representatives who care here. But the things we put in place now is heavily going to affect us in the future. And again, the rent is too damn high. Thank you.
Dwayne Comer.
Hi, Dwayne Comer. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother and older people within this neighborhood that's been in here for a long time, down in the area over there that you guys are talking about. I think that we need to hold up because they have something to say, and this rent is just ridiculous. My mom been trying to move for over 2 years. I've been having to deal with this high rent thing, and I understand that a lot of people is being shipped in from here, but bottom line, we're from here, we're here, and we got to deal with it. So for us as blacks in that area, I'm speaking, and I ask for you guys to hold up. Let us get a little bit better understanding on what's going on, and we do got a lot to say.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I had a few want to come back around. We have 10 minutes. Yep, you and Mrs. Callis. Yeah, then you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
People have, first of all, democracy is essential.
number one. People have spoken here eloquently and in detail about the effect on Lafayette Road. I think that there are neighborhoods across this city who are not aware of the impact of this upon them. And when they do become aware of it, there will be a lot of difficulty. On behalf of my clients, to establish what was legal at the time of construction, I read the 1926 zoning ordinance. And it was very interesting because throughout 1926 and 1927, after the ordinance was passed, aldermen, it was the aldermanic system at that time, aldermen would come to the Common Council and ask for amendments to the zoning ordinance. This happened every month, nearly every month. They were almost always passed, but that was because the property owners, usually small corner stores, rental residential, etc., became aware finally of what had been promulgated that had an adverse impact upon their continued enjoyment of their property. You will face this. My warning to the Common Council is this may dominate your agenda for the next few years. I echo the comments of those who said, take care of this in detail before it is adopted so that you can avoid this coming to on your doorstep for years to come. And one of the ways to do that
Thank you. Okay,
is
now
to
we're
have
out of time.
detailed neighborhood
Now
planning
we're out of time, sir.
that
Thank you.
games out rezone.
Mrs. Calaserino, you want to speak again?
Paula Calcerinos. With the stroke of a pen, this determined a change on a zoning map from an R1 residential to an R4. It does not follow the comprehensive plan for our area on Lafayette Road. People worked effortlessly in composing this plan to make sure the development is right for a certain area. I would like this to be put back to the original from R4 upzone to R1 for Lafayette Road residents. And I just don't understand how one person could take a pen, Mr. Owen Kearney, and change it without further discussion from our area on Lafayette Road. I would like to thank the efforts of the people that we had speaking for us on behalf of Lafayette Road residents, Kathy Stribley, George Matthews, and Mark Cooney. They were all very helpful, and they spent many hours of time with us in trying to handle this proposal of the upzone for our area. And thank you, Jen Schultz. She was the only one that showed up to realize what was actually going on for Lafayette Road. And thank you for the council listening to us, and I hope you pause this and you go through and see that we are correct and that rezone should not be occurring at this particular time, that it should be paused and we should have everything settled.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Montgomery, then Ms. Marva, then Ms. Vesey.
Thank you. So I asked my father, he has so many job offers from a rich country, yet why he choose this Botswana, very poor African country, poorer than where we were staying from. And then my father told me that life is not all about the money. Life is all about doing the right thing. We need to go where my talent and my work is needed. So that's why he chose Africa, and we lived there for 6 years, and he helped the African people develop and learn stuff. So it is the same principle that we can apply in Syracuse, New York also, that about zoning, that where the people needed are the refugee people settled in the north side. They need a lot of housing, and there's a people, the area that need a lot of low-income housing. Please focus on that and help them provide the housing that they need. Because Lafayette Road, where we stay, is very far from middle of nowhere. There's no Walmart, there's no LD, there's no Top, just like the lady mentioned. There's no Price Chopper. Very few buses are running from Lafayette Road. So how are the low income and affordable housing people going to commute from Lafayette Road to get their grocery? The only place they have is Kinney's, and you know what you can get from Kinney's. So anyway, Lafayette Road is not desirable and not practical for the low-income apartment or housing to be built. It's very small, very narrow road, and very few residents are there. So please do the right thing, and please provide housing where it is most needed. And I know all of you are intelligent, smart people that know what is right and wrong and where the help is needed. So I'm hoping and praying that you will all do the right thing, and please leave the Lafayette Road alone and provide where the need is. Thank you.
Ms. Mara.
I'll keep it very brief. We just ran out of a little bit of time. Kathy Stribley and Rhonda and myself, none of us got to speak to one fairly simple request from all of you. You've heard a number of complex and really important issues for your consideration. I am asking for a one-letter change on page 56. Owen Kearney met with us and heard our issues with mini storage and one other, let's see, what was it? And storage yards, and changed those from P to S on page 56, making it so that a special permit is now required for those uses, and that means that they are possible for grocery stores to remain in those areas, and that that residents will have the opportunity to really voice their concern if a grocery store or a mini storage is just not wanted. However, warehousing still remains as a permitted use without that special permit process, so we would just request that on that line 3 of page 56, where it exists P under commercial, to please change that to S. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Beasley?
Thank you, Council, for your time this evening. And just to reiterate what Maura just said, the warehousing, and thanks to what you've already done regarding access on a Valley Plaza, for us to have a farmer's market there, the warehousing is just as equally important. With that, it would be very hard to put together and keep and bring a grocery store into that community. As I said, access to fresh food is hard to find when there's only places like Dollar General, Dollar Tree, and Family Dollar. Bringing access to fresh food is part of what Food Access Healthy Neighborhoods is all about, and we are planning for a huge farmers market launching, grand opening June 24th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. right outside on the space that zoning has already granted us at the Valley Plaza, 4141 South Salina Street. Everybody come on out. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mary, too quick.
I just want to reiterate some comments that were made earlier that can very easily be put in reframing the rezoning. There really needs to be more affordable housing, both for people below the poverty line, in the poverty line, and just above it. So that having 10% of 20 apartments or whatever and more is insulting to who the neighborhood is and in being able to include the neighborhood. And the other thing is there should not, and this is really simple to take out of the deal, there's no way to have a waiver. There should be no waivers by the developer, who's a big developer most likely, paying a fee so they don't have to put in affordable housing. There must be affordable housing to be equitable in the neighborhoods that we're talking about.
Thank you. There were comments submitted to the clerk already. They will be entered into transmission, and they will be recorded. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight to share. We're done. You get 1 minute, and then we're shutting down.
We are asking you to consider 3 options we believe are within the council's control. You can send this rezone mapping back to the Planning Commission, asking that there be another public hearing with questions and concerns being able to be directly addressed to planning and zoning representatives and requiring them to answer citizens directly. 2, council could recommend additional public hearings where planning and zoning could schedule public meetings to go into the community to answer questions pertaining to the new proposed ordinance and code and mapping, possibly presented at a series of respective localized TNT meetings prior to your vote. The 3rd suggestion we would offer would be council could amend the proposed rezone map, keeping all these properties on Lafayette Road R1 as they are currently recognized, removing the proposed R4 upzone from the Rezone Syracuse map before moving forward to vote by passing rezone. Thereafter, the rezoning of parcels on Lafayette Road could progress after the adoption of rezone in a fair manner to all, adhering to the new code.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I declare this public hearing closed, and with that, we will consider the litigation at our regular meeting.